Hello Marvel Heroes fans, my name is Wilfred Wong and welcome to my channel where you could see quite a number of guides for heroes, for new players, for just players of all sorts. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the Runewords versus the last video. Just to recap, I published a video called the Best Artifact Guide. So this is a spin-off from that video, and I'm not going to repeat all the methodology, how I derive all these numbers and so on. So if you would like to refer to how I derive all these scores and how I rank the items, please go back to the Best Artifact Guide. There's a time code there for you to jump to the particular session to find out more. Now, before I move on to this guide, probably would like to just highlight certain context, because all this ranking as objective. It's based on mathematics, based on the damage output. So, as I always title this guide is rank for maximum damage. I understand that there are other attributes like health, like area reduction, or even for Runewords, wise, spirit and regen and so on. So those could be useful for your hero, but I cannot put a blanket statement or kind of like a trade-off that apply for all heroes, because face it, not all heroes would have as intense requirement on health as other heroes. Like if you're playing range and if the hero design is very high health, then most likely you do not need to invest so much on the artifact or even the Runewords for those defensive stats. So just bear in mind, this is a private project that I've done for the guides that I built. Usually I refer to a list of artifacts, a list of Runewords to recommend. This is more like a private project I would like to just share with you. You may find it useful, you may not find it useful, but that's fine. And also just read the context. It's not about all those defensive stats that if you find it useful, feel free to just skip those ranking and use it, right? I'm not here to tell you that you should pick the top 5 or top 4 or top 1 for Runewords, all right? So now, let's jump to this Runeword guide, because that is what this video is about. Like the previous guide is only for non-summoner items, because summoners work in a different way, and I've got a video called Gearing for Summoner that gives you all the trade-off, kind of like ideas on how to deal with all these stats. And also for Runeword, it's quite simple. It's either Beastmaster or Doop Inspiration. So Doop Inspiration is better than Beastmaster, but both are equally expensive to use. And the like I mentioned before, this is just for damage only, because that is the only thing I can mathematically apply for the heroes that I have. All right. So now the main value of this guide, I mean, if you look at the Runewords, actually it's quite straightforward. You say, well, I mean, I kind of know which one is better, and it's true. I also kind of know what's better, but I also would like to know the gap between different Runewords, so that if I say, well, I don't have that rune and I would like to use this for that hero because that hero may not be my favorite, what kind of gap I'm talking about that I'm losing in terms of DPS, all right? And then Power Doop has been quite a popular Runewords, not just for hybrid, for pure as well. I've seen like quite a few of people actually use that for their pure mental hero or physical hero and so on. So in this guide, I'm going to look into max and min of the Power Doop's Runewords. So just in case you roll a max or a min or somewhere in between, you know where you land on this ranking. So that's what I'd like to share with you. And also something that's new to this guide that you haven't really seen an artifact guide, because Runewords are a lot more easier to manage, is that I'm going to illustrate how to use this list to apply to mental hero, energy hero, as well as the physical, melee and range. Because physical is a little bit tricky, because usually physical have a split between the melee and ranged, while for mental and energy there are Runewords that cover both. So so that is the reason why I like to illustrate them, and also would like to share with you my essential Runeword list, meaning that these are the Runewords I always go back to, no matter what guide I use and why is it so. All right, so let's kick start on that. Now, there are a couple of tips we'd like to share with you here. Runewords is applied to uru-forged. If you have an expensive Runewords, apply to a level 50 Runewords. The uru-forged item. So do not use the expensive runes for your level 25 uru-forged item, because leveling is very fast, and soon you just declare that as done deal, and you need to upgrade. And the Runeword cannot be swapped, so make your decision, stick with it. And for the hybrid, I always consider using the defense instead, because 800 defense is actually not bad, and consider the fact that Gazillion is going to do a revamp on the defense and dodge. And also another good thing about hybrid, the rolling of the Runeword is that for power dupe, it's a range, so the range is quite high. So I always rolled it for a couple of those defense Runewords and uru-forged, and see which one has a higher damage for which type, because then I can select, okay, my hero only do physical energy, so I have a low mental affix, that's fine, I can drop it. Or that's the whole Runewords, the uru-forged Runewords can only have a very high physical but not on mental energy. That's fine, I can use it for my physical hero. So something along that line that you could sort of like play around with. So because for me, the material is hard to come by, but if you play a lot, maybe it's very cheap for you, doesn't matter, go for your best. Forget about the ranged uru-forged, forget about the melee uru-forged. There aren't heroes these days that are pure melee or pure range. I mean, you can't future proof, because like think, right? So suddenly Gazillion may give a power whereby he does something that's not melee. So what we're going to do with all these uru-forged, right? So also consider the fact that we play this game, I play all 50 odd heroes, and I have to feed all these heroes, so I can't just keep giving the best rune for the one hero and keep feeding. So for example, if I have a Doop rune, I would like to feed all the hybrid hero and the future ones as well, some of them, before I can even consider recovering those, like some of these Doop rune for the pure type, for example, right? So just bear that in mind. And as I always said, right, you use all this gear to close a certain gap in your gearing objective. So your hero may have a lower crit, your hero may have higher crit. So these are the things that you like to close a gap. And then also you may consider using a Seer Brilliance for your level 25 uru-forged, because they help tremendously for your leveling. It gives you a spirit regen as well. And so yeah, just like the artifact guide, the score has meaning to it. So this, like for instance, if you compare two Runewords, and one is 100%, one is 90%. So what does that score mean? The score means that you have to multiply 10% loss in score with a 1.125. That gives you 11.25 performance loss. So versus if you use 100% score Runewords versus a 90% score Runewords, you lose 11.25 percentage of overall performance, average overall performance, including creep, including brutal, including all the jazz that you have. All right. So yeah, some of you ask about how I derive all this, and is my hero having a high crit to start with, and so on. So recall, all this guide, all this ranking, I'm doing in a basket of hero. They're more or less strong hero. They are comparable in each other's queue time. And but the crit range, I can tell you, is about 50 to 60 range. So it doesn't matter which end of the spectrum, all these things apply. That's why I need a basket of heroes. And also another point to note is that sometimes I may make a mistake. My apologies on all those things, because once I publish my private study or analysis to you all, some of you may point out, hey, how come that one is so low? And I realize that, oops, I've made a mistake there. So do check back in and see. I put the updates on my video in terms of the any change to it, and as well as I annotate my video as well, so for the latest kind of like a ranking. All right, so that's all for this part of the video, and another part is on the ranking itself. Okay, let's look into 18 Runewords or ranked. As I said before, do check back in from time to time to see any update or annotation that I made to this part of the video. Now, like the artifact guide, I'm going to share with you the graph here, but don't strain your eyes on all these like words on the left hand side, because I will go into detail with you in just a bit. But as per the last study on the artifact, you see that there's a whole bunch of outliners over there, and there's some sort of like a tier to it, like every 0.5% or 1% drop, it will be like a couple of tiers to it. So I'm going to sort of like separate all this into different tiers, just to make it easier to sort of like comprehend. But there are always a whole bunch of outliner, and your hero may or may not be able to use all these bunch of outliner anyway. So just for your information. All right. So if you look at the two end of the spectrum, that is the performance difference. If you look at the the lowest one and the highest one, doesn't mean that you could get the gap all the time, but it also shows that for some for some heroes who are able to utilize the top part of the artifacts, there is a performance gap against other heroes. That's all it takes. But if you look at the medium of it, just like the artifact guy, I look at the medium, which is Gem of the Curse. If you look at the medium, it's a Heartbreaker. So if you look at the Heartbreaker, then the score is 91.15%. And you look at the lowest, which is Cow King Gift, which is not a bad Runewords really for the new players. The gap is just about 2.15%. So make what you can, what is 2.15% means to you. So I think sometimes we want the best, but also don't burn yourself trying to get all those runes for the best. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so as for the artifact, the hybrid Runewords are really, really yummy. If you look at the how I do it is that Power Doop Max is the one that the max roll for all the damage type, meaning that only probably Dr. Doom can do it and Rogue can do it. You will get 100% score. All right, it is a hybrid Runewords, and you can get it from the vendor called Moon Dragon. All right, and it requires special dupe. Special runes called Doop to sort of craft that. But if you look at the next best thing, if you're looking at physical mental, which is something like a Ghost Rider kind of like configuration, you are actually getting quite a fair bit close to what the max is as well. Physical energy a little bit down, so these are like the physical energy would be like Thor, then it's like a bit lower, which is about 4% off on the score, so it is more when it comes to performance. But say if your luck doesn't come with you and say, okay, my power dupe, all the rolls are terrible, so what does that mean? You lose 5% score, which is of course more than 5%, 5 to 6% performance versus a max roll, but then you are still at the top of the whole ranking compared to quite a lot of them if you are playing Dr. Doom or Rook. So do you really want to sweat about it and so on? You probably not, but you could always try to roll for another one and get a better one, because for those 3 damage type it's quite hard to get, but once you get it, there's only 2 you can use it. So yeah. Then the next one, look at the mean of the physical mental, is the one below. Now I know some of you like to use the power do for physical type hero. If you can manage to get a max roll, actually it's pretty good. It's about 94.4% score. So that put it very high up, not as a hybrid, as a physical. So it's something for you to consider. But then, like I always say, that we need to fit the dupe room to quite a lot of heroes, plus any future hero you have, and you also need to keep re-rolling for the best role for the hybrid hero that can really truly utilize the most of it. So yeah, I mean that is a decision you have to make. And then after that, the max roll for mental energy actually is quite a bit low. 94.2% is actually quite low. Now, what this story tells you is that the when it comes to a hybrid, even for the 3 damage type, the physical one is actually pretty high on the list. But you also see how Gazillion kind of like balance it out, because if you look at the Ectoplasm as well, the physical proc is actually quite useless. It's just a dodge, I think. And the main one is on the energy and the and mental. In fact, the energy is one of the best one. There's 20% against boss, and you can look at the energy. Actually is not doing that well as well. So I think in a way they try to balance it, and you can get a lot done on the Runeword side, but then on the artifact side you suffer a little bit. So it all even out, even for all the hybrid. All right. So that is for the hybrid. If you have a hybrid hero, use it. If you don't, unless you are using a pure physical, then dupe is not for you. Okay, so the next tier is that this tier again is all the ranking here. So All Father's Fury is for melee. It has a very insane cost. You need the Odin runes. I think I've only seen like 2 Odin runes so far in my career with the Marvel heroes. So it's probably not something that everybody can go for. But if you are doing melee and you say that, okay, I want the absolute best for my melee hero, and and if the melee hero is not physical, then yes, this is the one. But if the melee hero is physical, then probably you should get a dupe, the power dupe max roll. Just saying. All right. So then Bowazon as well is a generic one. It's a very high cost as well, because it costs you a tier rune as well as Saturn. Unstoppable Force, also very high up there, and that's one of my favorite for my movement hero, because the cost of crafting is very low, and it drops from Juggernaut. The recipes, just keep farming Juggernaut. I think about 100 50 times, you probably get the recipe, all right, Unstoppable Force. Then, if you look at the power dupe minimum of it as a physical hero, it's still quite good. Guess what? It's 92.39, and if you look at the rest of the score, this is actually quite unstoppable. The power dupe for the physical hero actually is pretty good as well. Then, I always advise God of Mischief because it is somewhere in a very nice tier. It's not like at the medium yet, but somewhere close to it. But it is a very nice Runewords to have. You have the farming from Loki, it could be a pain, but it does have other things that I'm not factoring into this study as well, because it has a health signature as well, ultimate rank up, power duration increase as well. So again, these are the things that you should take into consideration. Does that mean something to you? If it doesn't, then just look at 92.22. If it does, then bump it up yourself in some kind of manner. So yeah. So after that, if you look at the power dupe max for mental, some use it for mental heroes, then this could be the one, or I would actually probably use something else. I'll talk about the illustration later. Then after that, the Heartbreaker is another one that is very high cost, but it's a generic for applicable for all heroes. And then the next few is actually very easy to sort of like get: the Blood Barrage, Fire Barrage, and Lady of Sword. Now these are all for the physical range, energy range, physical melee, so it covers quite nicely, as well as the Storm Giant Maggie as well, which is mental. So these are the one that, these are like my workhorses, although some people may have a negative connotation to workhorse. I love workhorse. Workhorse means that I can always rely on and get a job done. All right, so that is a couple of them. Then Viking Gladiator is the one that melee and give a bit of health as well, but then the cost is so high. Why would I want to do that? I don't know. Then the Power Dupe mean for the mental energy for something like that. All right, so now the last two tiers go something like this. So from this probably you realize that there's no point having a mental power dupe just for mental, because it kind of drop quite far if you are not getting the max. Even if you get the max, there's something better for you. Then later assault 80% melee. Now why do I want to put this into my ranking? Because not all heroes are able to do 100% melee. So for example, heroes like maybe Captain America or Daredevil, or some heroes that it's a majority of melee, but Iron Man, my melee build, but there's still a little bit of range as well. So there are heroes that does majority of melee, which is 80% of it. Then I rank it somewhere there. There are also, if you look below a little bit, there's 60% melee, because I do theory crafting a lot. So I've seen Captain America is probably at the 60-40 region, and there are others that is more of the 80-20 region. So just put that out for my own reference. Even if my heroes can't take 80% or 60%, where am I? All right. So there are cases whereby if my melee is actually pretty high, then so all this ranking become sort of like feedback to me. All right, so then Hero of the Asgard has a very high cost, but there's a party buff as well. So if you do raiding, maybe that's useful. And after that, Bonebreaker, mainly for melee, +1 strength. So if you need a small tiny bit of power cord reduction, then maybe it is good for you rather than the Lady of the Sword. Yeah, so something to think about. And then Viking Gladiator, if you are doing 80% melee, that is where you are. But because of the high cost, I really wouldn't recommend you to sort of get it unless you benefit 100% of your whole all the powers that you use. All right. Then Hammer of the Gods is basically energy physical, also very high cost. And then Voice of the Spirit Walker is a nice one, by the way, because it gives you the health and spirit as well. It may mean something to you for energy. Then the last bit of it is very much like the one that I talk about, the Cow King gift, which is the one that you get from the cow level. And there's two bosses there called Bravek, a bit depending on which of the so that is that's there. And then you have the Power Dupe, then the Courage of Asgard, also very insane. Zoot, Odin, Thor. I think I only seen one Zoot in my whole career with Marvel heroes. So so it's crazy insane. So that's all for the ranking itself. So now that you have seen the ranking, let's break it down into different scenario and see how this list can be applicable to your decision in picking the Runewords for your hero. All right. So now let's look at the mental heroes first, because the mental heroes are easier to talk about. That's not many that does the melee and sort of like melee and ranged as a pure mental hero. So like Emma Frost, you can build a pure mental build for her range, pure range mental. Doctor Strange as well, Scarlet Witch, and even Psylocke. You can switch everything to mental. Although she does both melee and range, but then when everything switched to mental instead of hybrid, then she's your mental hero. So couple of things. The best one for the mental hero would be the Bowazon. That would give you a score of 92.68% on the overall larger scheme of work. But the God of Mischief is very close to it. So your DPS loss against the baseline, which is the Bowazon, is about 0.58%, which is very, very minimal. It's like, well, but if you look at what God of Mischief gives you in terms of health, signature, rank up, and so on and so forth, I would say, yeah, I mean, it is a very good alternative. And it's not as hard to farm the runes as a Bowazon. Alright, but if you do not have the 5 no-key rune, then you say, well, I mean, can I do a power dupe max on it? So yeah, you could, but then bear in mind that you may require quite a number of the rune that you apply to a mental uru-forged until you get a max one of it. And if you don't get a max one of it, you actually fall below that. And also, once you apply the Runeword into the mental uru-forged, you can't use that for others, damage type. So it's a very high risk there for me, at least. So that's why not something I would do. Heartbreaker is one that is pretty decent. But then, if I look at Heartbreaker and the Storm Giant, Maggie, I really do not see why I should use a Heartbreaker, because it's so high, the requirement for the Heartbreaker. So yeah, it's not something I would do. But say if you're unfortunate about the power dupe, you actually get somewhere near the Stormbreaker, or Heartbreaker. Storm Giant or Heartbreaker, sorry. Yeah. All right. So then Hero Asuka, I think I wouldn't want to talk too much about those two, because those are very high and insane, and you don't want to sort of like get the carved here. All right. So that's mental hero. When it comes to energy hero, what are the energy hero? Energy hero mostly are also ranged, like like a Storm, like Invisible Woman. But like Nova, he can do like a melee and range as well. But again, good thing about the energy Runewords is that it covers the energy itself without having you to decide whether you should take the melee or range. So again, top of the list is the Bowazon. As for the mental one, then God of Mischief come the next one, then Heartbreaker, then Fire Barrage. Now I really would recommend Fire Barrage, although it is like a slight drop from Heartbreaker, but it is the requirement is just not too insane when it comes to the Runewords, the runes itself. Alright, so then again, the rest of it, I really would not recommend putting a Doop rune into in just rolling for pure energy, because even if you get a max, you can't beat Fire Barrage. Is super easy to get. All right, so but of course, all these things you need to proportion it a little bit. If you say Nova can only do like 40% range or whatnot, 50% range, then all these things may shift a little bit and so on. So but then you may want to consider, maybe I should go for God of Mischief. Right, so that is just sort of like idea for you. Then when it comes to physical hero, let's talk about range and melee, because that's quite interesting. Physical range, usually when you come to range hero, they are pure range. Like the I'm talking about pure range here, like the Hawkeye, like the Punisher, like the Winter Soldier, the ranged build that you can actually build the hero as pure range. So when it comes to that things become quite interesting, because if you manage to get a power dupe max roll, then you get the top of the tier, like this is the baseline. But even if you can't get a power dupe top roll, you also get pretty decent. So either way, just roll a power dupe Runewords if you have the dupe runes to spare. So I always advise, feed all your hybrid hero first, then roll a few more just in case you have other hybrid hero coming on board in the future. Like maybe I do about 4 to 5 more, just store in my stash. Those are good ones for my future hybrid hero. But any excess rune dupe rune that you have, maybe you want to consider doing it for the physical hero. But also bear in mind that the summoner will require the dupe rune for Doop Inspiration. That also a range. So again, I think dupe rune is in really high demand. So I wouldn't really, yeah. So what I would do, if I really like the hero, I would just go for the God of Mischief, because I think the low-key rune is slightly easier to get. Otherwise, the Blood Barrage and Heartbreaker is really like 4% down. It's quite low. But then if you compare that to God of Mischief, it's just maybe like a 1% down, one each 1.5. So yeah, for the physical range, there aren't many choices. They are all like quite disparate. So you make the decision yourself. And as for melee is a lot more forgiving when it comes to the Runeword decision or the Runeword requirement. Like before, the Power Dupe Max is the best out there for the melee physical. But there are other things to consider, like the All-Father's Fury, which is insane, the requirement, Bowazon, or even the God of Mischief. Those are pretty good tiers you have. But then after that, you can look into the one lower below is the Heartbreaker, Lady of Sword. I mean, I personally like Lady of Sword a lot because it has a health regen component to it, which again, these are the things that you have to sacrifice a little bit of performance, but you gain a little bit of utility. I cannot rank this up for you guys because each one of you, depending on which hero you have, may have a different requirement. So just forgive me if I can't, if you think some of these rumors are supposed to go up because of all these additional comments I have, feel free to adjust it based on your own index. All right, so if you take a look at that, then yeah, I mean the physical hero basically is a couple of them that you can pick from for the melee. So and if you look at what are my essential lists, right? So looking at all this rune words for all these different type of hero and so on, my essential lists are as follows, right? Power Dupe for the hybrid hero, God of Mischief for those heroes whom I really love. Then I put a God of Mischief there. And then after that, I think Blood Barrage, Fire Barrage, and Lady of Sword, and Storm Giant, Maggie, those are the ones that like my workhorses that I can rely upon to sort of like get a job done. So I rely upon them to get a job done and get sorted. And that's how I usually build my guide around all these rune words. But now that you have the knowledge, now that you have the information from my list, you could make a better judgment on that one. All right, so thank you for watching this video, and I hope it's been useful for you. If you haven't checked out the best artifact guide, please do so, and do ping me in game and let me know how it's like. And as and when I've got some new information, new update for this guide, I'll just annotate on this video, put it on the description itself. All right, so till the next time we see each other, goodbye, have fun.